tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They were hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal, it's hit him on the pad, he's out! Lions gone, New South Wales are 9 down! Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car! Oh, I think it's hit a car! What a way to bring up your 50!
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
I do not believe in people celebrating me. I do not believe in the kind of attention we get sometimes in India. It is the game that's always stood ahead of me all the time. Because if you watched me, talk about the game or dissect it, it's all about how much I love the game. It's not so much what comes with it.
Well, that was Ravichandran Ashwin speaking after his retirement to Sky Sports. And I just loved the way he spoke so passionately about the game. He talked about how much he loved the game. It was so refreshing to hear about that. So many professional cricketers talk about, well, not watching the game, being sick of the game, always wanting a break, especially some of these Australian players. But to hear his passion just flowing out of him, it was beautiful. Welcome to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Menners. I'm joined by Gav Joshi. Gav, how are you?
I'm good. Imagine being stuck in a middle seat on a long distance plane, and one side you've got Ravi Ashwin, the other side you've got Marnus Labuschagne. Could you imagine what that could be like? It would be great for someone like me, but even a mild cricket enthusiast might even get bored out from those two about what they might even talk about.
Absolutely. Can you just pull the mic a bit closer, Gav? You're just a bit faint.
Yep.
Beauty. Thank you, Gav. So we are here to preview the biggest day on the cricket calendar in Australia. The Boxing Day test starts in a couple of days. So much news around both teams, so a lot to talk about. Let's start with the Australian side, Gav. There's a few question marks. Travis Head is carrying a little groin injury. There was reports that he hobbled out of the nets today, which is Christmas Eve, the 24th, and went and spoke to the coach and the physio about how his groin is holding up after tweaking it in the last test match. Obviously, this is a huge piece of the puzzle because he's been so dominant in this series. I mean, you can imagine if on Boxing Day morning a team sheet is read out and Travis Head is not there, the Indian team will just breathe an audible sigh of relief, I imagine.
There will be no headaches through their camp. But look, I think it's a quad rather than the groin. And that's exactly what I think Pat Cummins said, and also Travis Head. I think a lot of these dramatic changes that's happened through the Australian camp are based on that injury. That's the whispers I've got, because Travis Head is a counter-attacking player. The whole template of Australia, we've talked about it ever since the start of this series, is been, grind out the first 30 overs, and that's why McSweeney was great. And then Travis Head has really capitalized on it. And I talked about my views on it. And the fact that Travis Head might not be there has made Australia rethink their policy in who is going to play that role if Travis Head does not play. He can't just start at number 5 because you're looking at someone like Inglis. Now so it needs to start somewhere up the top. You can't have, someone like Stephen Marnus Labuschagne to go hammer and tongs. So if they want to change it, they got to change that approach at the top, and that man is Sam Constance. Because Constance, if he faces 50 balls, he's not going to be on 10 runs. He's going to be on 40, or he could nick off early. But I have a feeling, and from whatever I've heard from the Australian camp, a lot of these sort of changes, or forced changes, if I can say it, is purely for the fact that they are not quite certain if Travis Head is going to pull up.
Well, that's a big call, especially to put it on a debutant, Sam Constance, to be the player to drive the pace. I mean, I think it really does illustrate what poor form Khawaja and Labuschagne are in at the moment, that they're turning to a 19-year-old debutant to set the tone in a test match. That's very concerning. I don't mind the change of dropping McSweeney. I think we need to get experience in younger players because we're going to need them very, very shortly. But that is concerning because it seems very one-dimensional.
Yeah, well, and given what George Bailey also said, that they want to change how they come at India, that to me also hints that they want to change it because something's not working, or whatever they've done has worked, but the main sort of catalyst of it was Travis Head, and he might not play. So then, how do you counteract that? So I have a feeling that that's the reason. I mean, if Travis Head plays, great, but if he doesn't, then there's huge concerns. And Travis, I think what George Bailey said clearly states that, according to me. Look, and from what's the other thing that came across my ears was the fact that in that second innings at the Gabba, they were almost told, okay, go out and be a little bit more dynamic, be a little bit more innovative, show a little bit more intent. And you saw the strokes that Labuschagne played and McSweeney played. They didn't really pull off. So they're not those type of players. So clearly somewhere it's gone into the camp, and they feel if they want a change of guard and attack India more without Travis Head or without Travis Head, then these aren't the right people to do it. And unfortunately, Nathan McSweeney is made the scapegoat out of it, which in a way I understand, but I think all this puzzle has happened because of Travis Head's injury.
Well, it's interesting. At the end of the last test match, normally the coach does an embargoed interview that is released after the test match. But I think there were so many moving parts at the end of the last test match, they actually just decided they wouldn't do one because they really, I don't think, wanted to talk about, injuries or selection because they weren't sure what was going on. So with Travis Head's, injury cloud, obviously a like-for-like replacement would be Josh Inglis. He could come in, bat in the same spot. He's a counter-attacking player. He plays spin well. Of course, he's only played for Australian white ball cricket. So again, we're asking a lot of a debutant to potentially come in on Boxing Day with Constance and set up the pace. But I really like Josh Inglis. He's a great player. But yeah, this could be a big moment for him if he's thrust into number 5 at the Boxing Day test.
Yeah, somewhere I think they like him. I think, again, another innovative player, plays the pull shot well. So yeah, that it could be interesting if Travis Head is ruled out. Who do they play? Do they bring in Bo Webster at 6? And I don't think they will. I think that if they've got Inglis, that they've got to bat him at number 5. So or even number 6, and maybe Mitch Marsh has to go to number 5 and really take on that Travis Head role. But are you happy with the change? Because last time I was stubborn enough to say, well, I don't think they'll make any changes, and I think it's like still calling it a forced change. Are you happy with Constance? Do you think Khawaja should have been dropped? What are your views?
Yeah, I'm happy with the change. I've reflected on it over the week, and I just think, and I had an argument with some people in the press box at a Big Bash game. I just think Bailey's got to say to Usman Khawaja, you are finishing at the SCG, and that is it. Full stop. Done. Career over. People saying, oh, we should take him to Sri Lanka, or he should have a chance to play in the World Test Championship final. That is BS. He's averaging low 20s as an opener in the last 18 months. He hasn't put together a big score. His best days are behind him, and I think they have to put him out to pasture as soon as possible. I don't think the right time to do it, though, was before these 2 test matches. Australia's whole principle has been, we're going to back our team. So it would have been it would have shown panic if they just decided to drop a few big players heading into the Boxing Day test. So again, McSweeney's kind of the scapegoat, because I think if Khawaja and Labuschagne were playing better, were playing more positively, were in better form, they might have actually said, oh, we'll just carry McSweeney. He's done all right. He's taking up balls. But I just think, as you said, it was basically 3 players playing the same. And I flagged this early on in the summer. I was saying early on, I would love Nick Maddinson, for example, to come out of the blocks for New South Wales and score a few tons. And then we get like an aggressive player to partner Khawaja. But we didn't get that. And I don't think you've seen Constas probably as much as I have. And even since he was, a younger player, he's not a particular, he's got shots, but he's a classical opener. Like if India bowls well, he's just going to weather the storm. He's not going to start charging bowlers like we've seen some other players.
Yeah, I think a little bit too much has been made out of his innings against the Prime Minister's 11 where he started ramping. Remember, it ended up in a 50-over game, basically. And after 20 balls, he decided to go and have some fun because, it's almost like this is let's give the Indian team a bit of a better back later on in the evening. So let's go and enjoy ourselves. That's what that. So I think too much has been looked into it. He has all the shots, but yeah, he'll be definitely more aggressive than Nathan McSweeney. But if he gets a half volley, he'll put it away. And we saw, like, while I was commentating on the India A games as well, like he will take up the opportunity. But at that same time, there's a risk that he goes hard at the ball, which he does, that he's going to nick off. There's some technical deficiencies there with the ball coming back in. And it might not be the easiest place to bat in Melbourne, especially if Australia bat first. There will be a little bit with the new ball, as the curator has said, and we've seen that throughout, the MCG pitch over the last sort of 2 or 3 years in the Shield as well. So, look, it's a good change. I think Australia's got to start looking at the future sometime sooner than later. Going back to Khawaja, I have a gut feel. I think post-Sydney, I think their retirement call will come from Usman himself.
Yeah, I hope it comes in the lead up to Sydney. I think he should announce it after this test match. And we get to give him a send-off on the ground. He debuted almost, I think, 14 years ago. Or it'll be 14 years. 2011, he debuted at the SCG. Made that wonderful 30.
Yes,
What was that?
I think your average is over 100 at the SCG.
Well, it'd be a good place to go out. He made those twin centuries when he returned to the side against England. All right, so Constas comes in, Khawaja, Labuschagne. I think we've got to temper our expectations from Constas. So I think putting him up against Nathan McSweeney, I'm pretty confident that Constas could do better than McSweeney, or at least the same as McSweeney in terms of runs output in the next 2 test matches. But I still think we've got to accept that it could be pretty rough, the next 2 test matches. He's taking a massive leap up. He's going to be facing Bumrah at the top of his game. So I think we should just temper our expectations that this is a learning experience for Constas. And I think at the end of this 5-test series, there was a lot of furor about McSweeney being the scapegoat, but at least at the end of this series, the selectors can go, well, McSweeney and Constas have got a bit of test cricket under their belt now. They'll be better when they go out next time. They're not going to face Bumrah against England next year, or maybe they're going to play in the West Indies, and they will definitely be in a better position.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. So I think that decision, it's come at the right time. I think it's still, like I mentioned, forced decision because of Travis Head's injury, but I think that's the only way this selection panel was going to be forced into sort of deviate from their plans. Otherwise, we've seen, McDonald, Cummins, and Bailey. They wouldn't change anything. At the end of the day, it's still 1-1, so they won't change it. And if it's 2-1, then maybe. You're spot on. I think the West Indies tour coming up, Sri Lanka's 2-match series, so it's going to be really hard to get a gauge of anyone who Australia picks, whether that's new or old, for that Sri Lanka test. And then West Indies, I think it's going to be a 3-test series, and then leading into sort of the WTC and the Ashes. I think there's still a lot of cricket to be played before the Ashes next summer.
Yeah, I think the West Indies tour is after the WCT final, so it'll be part of the next cycle. So they could say to Khawaja, we'll take you to Sri Lanka, and if we make the World Test Championship final, that can be your end. But I think that's soft, and I don't think that's the way Australian cricket. You don't hand out gifts. You don't hand out test matches just for, what a participation awards.
Yeah, what if does Khawaja, whether he carries on, is that dictated, of course, one of the experienced players, is that dictated by if Cummins goes to Sri Lanka or not?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think those two are related. I was actually thinking about more the World Test Championship final overarching point system. So I think Australia in the next, they've got 4 Test matches left in this cycle: 2 against the West Indies, 2 against India, and 2 against Sri Lanka. If Australia wins 2 and draws 1, bare minimum, they make the World Test Championship final. So I do think that will come into it, that if we get ruled out of the World Test Championship final, say the next 2 Test matches against India don't go well, I think they're just going to throw the team out the window and start to rebuild. I think they'll definitely make big changes. Whereas I can see a world where if they do come home with a wet sail in this series and come over the top of India, then they say to some of the senior players, you sort of earned the right to try and get us to the final and go to Sri Lanka.
Which is why I don't think Usman Khawaja unless he makes a call himself, I don't think he gets pushed. But look,
I think if Khawaja doesn't make any runs in the next 2 Test matches, it's a simple goodbye. Just don't complicate it. Okay, play spin very well, but I think we can open in Sri Lanka with Travis Head and a right-hander. So you don't need Khawaja there. And then you're going to bring in middle-order players. Inglis will probably play on the subcontinent. You could get a left field pick of like a Maxwell or a Hanscom, players that are very adept at playing spin off the back foot and have experience in the subcontinent.
I think McSweeney's still a good player of spin from whatever I saw. So I think
he might come back in the middle order.
Yeah, number 5 or something. So, that absolutely makes sense. But look, we talked about that Adelaide match being crucial again. Series at 1-1. This is a big moment in Australian cricket again. This test match, because 2-2. I mean, let's say India wins this match. I mean,
it's gone.
It's
Trophy's
gone. Trophy's gone. And 2-2. Look, my belief is this whole we retain the Ashes. That's coming with a glass half full attitude. I mean, I can't believe. They didn't last time, but I remember 2019 going and singing a song when they retained the Ashes. That just to me, and under Justin Langer, it just shows that your attitude's wrong. You got to win. So if India win this, it's basically like a lost series to me, rather than having won it or drawn the series.
So what you're saying is, if it's 2-2 India, that's as good as a loss for Australia.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, look, you've had everything perfect in this series. Everything perfect. You had the perfect schedule. Your bowlers were fresh. You might call them underdone for Test match number 1, but that was for the bowlers to dictate. So I think 2-2 is a huge disappointment.
Oh, massive disappointment. And they're trying to sugarcoat it with, we've been dominant in the last 2 Test matches. But as you say, it is really on these next 2 matches. Boxing Day is going to be huge. If India come out and win, series gone.
Well, that's it. So you're talking about 2 Test matches. I mean, even if India win this one and India go with attitude, well, hang on, we can't lose the series. And just like Australia did in the Ashes in 2019, we can't lose now and lose the last game. It's still a win for India. I truly believe that.
I concur with you. And look, we'll wait to see how they go in the next 2 matches. Australia has started playing better, but there are still significant problems. So Qantas is going to come in, although it's not confirmed. I imagine he'll come in and open with Khawaja. Head in big doubt. You could see Josh Inglis come in there. There's also a couple of pieces of the puzzle. So there is some whispers around that Scott Boland's been carrying a little niggle, and it shouldn't preclude him from playing at the Boxing Day Test. But they did call in Jai Richardson into the squad to be the spare fast bowler with Sean Abbott. They love Jai Richardson. I know the Australian selectors see him as one of the bowlers to replace these big 3 quicks at the moment. Jai Richardson's getting old. He's not getting old, but he's 28. He's just turned 28 a couple of months ago. He's played 3 tests, taken 11 wickets, averages 22 in test cricket. He's got that X factor for the highest level, but he's been plagued by injury over the last few years. He can't take a trick, the poor lad, but he's in the squad now. I think there's just half a chance he sneaks in there ahead of Boland if Boland's got a niggle. Sean Abbott's also there, but I just wonder for this sort of big Test match whether they'd want someone that's played a few test matches like a Joe Richardson? What do you think?
Yeah, quite possibly. Look, I've seen a lot of Sean Abbott. Sean Abbott to me is like the A tour cricketer. I mean, I don't think Sean Abbott's a test bowler. Like, it could be a decent third seamer, but again, he needs conditions, everything to go. I don't think Sean Abbott has those, given his age and but he's sometimes too good for first class cricket. I don't think he's as good as Scott Boland is. Scott Boland was able to make that transition. I don't think Sean Abbott. So if they are to play, if you remember back-to-back test matches, I think one thing people have to understand, Menace, is we've done a lot of commentary at the SCG. The SCG pitch this year is the most different. It's got more pace and bounce and life than we've seen for the last 7, 8 or 8 years. So even from the Indian camp, if they're thinking, we're going to play 2 spinners, Sydney, it's a given. It's not going to happen this year. And the spinners have actually, saw Western Australia play 2 spinners and get hammered as well. And Rockacholi, who's supposed to be the next cab off the rank after Nathan Lyon. So that back-to-back games is going to involve Australia picking 3 seamers in Sydney. That it's not going to. So if that's the case, how does Starkey pull up? I still think the heavy workload in Brisbane, that on that 4th evening where Cummins and Stark really put in, is taken its toll to a smaller effect. And I think, they, strength and conditioning coaches have those little charts and, they go into yellow zones and red zones. I reckon Stark and Cummins just sort of borderline and maybe touch those red zones, and that's what flags someone like Richardson coming into the squad as well. In case they got to do a lot of work here, you just never know, especially someone like Stark. So, because I think Stark and Joe Richardson probably more like to like than anybody, because they bowl that fuller length. They're genuinely sort of swing bowlers rather than, someone like Boland needs to be replaced. I think someone like Abbott's probably more like to like rather than a Joe Richardson.
Well, and they love Abbott. I know that Cummins and Stark have obviously played a lot of cricket with him at New South Wales. And if they want a workhorse, someone they can just throw the ball and bowl spell after spell, he's got that grounding of playing a lot of first-class cricket, whereas Richardson has only played, a game or 2 since coming back from his injury this season. So not a huge amount of cricket under his belt. And as you say about the 2 pitches, so, the Melbourne pitch is a little slower than we've seen before. The other test matches this summer, obviously, but the groundskeeper saying he's going to leave a lot of grass on it, as he did last year, and we saw Pakistan's bowlers absolutely tore through Australia's top order there. So that's the sort of pitch we're going to get. And as you say, the SCG not turning quite as much as it has in the past, and they're leaving a little bit more grass on it. So we could get sort of 2 similar pitches. So I guess Boland, the heavy favourite to play if he's fit, but don't discount an Abbott or a Richardson playing, because I don't think they'll want to take a bowler into a big test match like this with any doubts. And then that moves on to the all-rounder. Does Mitch Marsh retain his spot, or does Beau Webster come in? I think my gut feeling is Mitch Marsh will retain his spot for Boxing Day, but I can see a world where the bowlers do a lot of work at Boxing Day, back-to-back test at the SCG, and they say, we're going to bring Webster in because he can bowl 15 overs a day if we need him to. What's your reading?
Yeah, and he bowled pretty well at the SCG, on that SCG deck. And, Beau Webster at that height, someone like Jack Edwards has had success on that SCG pitch as well. Similar type of bowlers. Of course, Jack may be a fraction quicker than Beau Webster. I agree. And also the result of this game is going to dictate what happens in the next one as well.
Well, yeah. And if Australia loses this one, then who knows what's going to happen. I get the feeling that if this series doesn't go to plan, there will be big changes by the selectors. I just get that inkling that they know that if the results don't go their way this series, then they need to turn this team over very quickly for the Ashes next year. And I said it before this summer, we cannot have a situation where it's 2 summers of hell for Australia, where we don't win the Border Gavaskar Trophy and then we cough up the Ashes. In the end, we don't have the Border Gavaskar Trophy. So it's not it's not something we have. Whereas we have the Ashes. We do not want to give them away. Just on Marsh v. Webster, Rick Finlay, the great statistician from Tasmania put out some stats for Marsh v Webster. In 2024, Mitch Marsh has made 401 runs at 23.59 and taken 5 wickets at 36.6. In 2024, Bo Webster has scored 1,121 runs at 53 and taken 49 wickets at 26. So Bo Webster's in phenomenal form. So if they do decide to pick him, I actually think he would add to the side. I do think they're missing that fifth bowler, despite Cummins and all them trying to, scoot over the fact that Marsh can't bowl. I think Webster would be a pretty good addition. But, you can't go into Boxing Day with Constance opener, Inglis comes in for head, then you can't bring in Webster. Because then you got 3 players on debut in the biggest test match of the summer. That would be crazy. So I think they'll probably stick with Marsh for this match.
Oh, 100%. Marsh is not going to drop. I don't think Bo Webster is playing in this game.
Anything else you want to talk about with the Australian team before we talk about the Indian team? But obviously they're the main issues floating around at the moment.
No, I think so. A big couple of test matches for Nathan Lyon, possibly. Maybe in that second Australian or when India bat second time, depends on the status of the game. If it is close, then I think Nathan Lyon, it's a big moment for him in the series. He probably hasn't been used that much, so we can't really say he hasn't bowled well, bad, bowled poorly. But if it's, if it comes to where, Australia get a slender lead or if they're behind and, fast bowlers are tired, Nathan Lyon, I think the back end of this game, what he does with the ball could be pivotal.
Yeah, and I think we said before, Adelaide, this is the biggest test match for Australia at home since 2017-18. And I think this test match is probably bigger than the Adelaide test now. The fact that the Gabba was a draw, the series is 1-1. It's going to be sold out. I read they've just released some more tickets for the Boxing Day test. So if you want to go along, have a look, you might be able to sneak a ticket in there. All right, so that is the Australian team preview. Big concerns overhead. Boland has a slight niggle. So keep an eye on that one. Hopefully Australia doesn't announce the team today. I do like the fact that India don't announce their team at the toss. And I think Australia should do the same thing. Just surprise India. Just wait until the final moment and then give them the team. I think that would be prudent with all these question marks. Just mess up the planning a little bit. Just a little bit.
Oh, but yeah, someone like Inglis coming in suddenly changes India's, like, how does he play? Where do we place the fielders? So I get what you're saying. I don't think Australia would declare their team. I think Travis said, we're still...
give him 2 days to recover.
Yeah, 48 days, 48 hours still.
48 days.
Still the first ball when we're recording. So, I don't think the team will be revealed today.
All right, let's talk about the Indian team. So some big news out of the Indian camp. So it's been confirmed Mohammad Shami will not join the squad. And I think it was becoming increasingly more unlikely that he would join the squad. There were no positive fitness reports out of India about him. He just seems to be getting through his overs at the moment. He's still in recovery, so you couldn't throw him into the heat of a test match. But obviously a big blow. It means, Bumrah won't, say, get some cavalry for the SCG test now.
Oh, look, I think, to be honest, given Jasprit Bumrah's first conference, given ever since Rohit Sharma's got here, it's just the outside people who've been saying Shami's great. And I think there's been the agenda's been pushed by a certain mob of journalists who hail from the same part of the world as Mohammad Shami. From what my whispers were, I don't think he was ever going to come. If he was going to come, it's going to be Test match 4 and 5, but not enough time. I don't think Rohit Sharma, given Shami's history, and I've heard a couple of incidents during the World Cup where Rohit probably didn't know if Shami could get through a game, and he ended up doing it. So I think that trust was a little bit broken. So I didn't think if Shami had to be 100%, like 110% to play. So I don't think he was ever going to appear on these shores. If he was, he's probably in Melbourne, given that he wasn't in the country. He had to be in the country sort of around that, the Cabot test matches. The fact that he wasn't, I don't think he was going to ever appear. And Jasprit Bumrah's first press conference, I think, led to that as well. He said, well, he's not here. almost hinting, well, we've sort of moved past him, or we've done our planning past him.
Yeah, and Sharma said as well at the Adelaide Test that Shami was still getting a little bit of swelling on the knees when he was bowling. So he's probably still a little way off being able to play Test cricket. But they have called in an off-spinning all-rounder to the squad to replace Ashwin. So Tanush Kotian has come into the squad. He's played 33 first-class games, taken 101 first-class wickets at 26. He's also scored 1,525 runs with 200s and 13 50s. So that's a pretty good record. Do you know much about him?
Yeah, he was here for the India A tour as well. They're looking for a world beyond Ashwin. A bit of a late boomer. He's a really sort of tosses the ball up, and he can bat. He's a genuine sort of all-rounder. He can bat at number 7. But my thing is, I've heard a couple of whispers out of Indian camp that Washington Sundar also might have a bit of a niggle, or the fact that given now that Ashwin's not in the squad and he's retired, you need somebody to continuously bowl a bit of spin to the Indian batters because prepare for Nathan Lyon, and because of that, if they're trying to preserve Washington Sundar, they want somebody to be bowling off spin as well. So that's another reason. And in case Sydney turns out to be a track that they want to play someone, that there is an option available if Washington Sundar is not fit. So that's the whole logic behind having Tanush Kotian here. He was here for the India A tour as well. Did okay, nothing, and as Matt Page, the MCG curator, said, it's certainly not going to be a helpful track for spinners. He doesn't think spin will play a big part during this test match. So it's looking more probably towards Sydney or what sort of transpires in the training sessions, that India just need that, a bit of backup armory, especially in the net bowling department. Why Kotian's going to fly over here.
And do you think there'll be any changes to the Indian team for this test match? So will they fiddle with the batting lineup? Will they leave Sharma at 6?
I think Sharma will stay at 6. I think it'll be the same team for India. I don't think they'll make changes. I think Reddy bowled okay. He's probably not a fourth seamer, but Jadeja with his batting, Rohit Sharma has to stay. I mean, Jadeja, who knows, probably bat at number 5. I've been saying it for a while now. I think Jadeja should bat at 5 and Pant should go to 7 and Rohit in the middle. So, and then you still got someone like a Reddy as well. And who knows, even Sharma, depending on if Jaiswal is in, they can change their batting order because Pant's been squeezed in at 5 because they don't want all their middle order to be right-handers. So look out for that change. Maybe Pant might drop down, and maybe a Jadeja comes in. But Jadeja's become a master on how to bat with the tail. So, and I think Reddy has to play. So I don't think India will make any changes. I think Akashdeep showed enough, and I think his fuller length might even trouble Australia more than maybe even a Siraj or maybe to an extent Bumrah on this MCG track.
Okay, so India looking unchanged. A lot more question marks over Australia. So you're right. I mean, this is a huge test match, all on the line. India can take the glory with a win at Boxing Day. God, my predictions have been sort of off this series. I've been tipping India the whole way. I do think there are concerns about the Indian top order, but I don't know. I've just got a feeling India are going to win this test match. I've just got that inkling that the fact that Australia seem to be in a little bit of disarray, this team's falling apart. I think it'll be a close game, but I'm tipping India just to edge this test match.
Big toss, isn't it, on Boxing Day? It's going to be 39, 40 degrees. The curator said there's going to be grass on the pitch. He did hint that, maybe we need to add a little bit more water because it's going to be 40 degrees on that day one. Take that into consideration. It's going to be a batting day when you look up 40 degrees. But I look back at the Melbourne Test match 3 years ago. Australia won the toss and batted. There was a lot of moisture there, and Ashwin came into his plane and got those 3 wickets that changed the Test match. On that opening session. So I think this toss is going to be tricky. You would you would want to bat. But geez, I mean, because it's going to be 40 degrees, but it could have a big play. It could have a big play, Menners.
Yeah, I think you've got two captains that actually probably don't want to win the toss at the moment. Their batting lineups are so shit. Normally, you want to win the toss and bat. What Janine Chappell say? You know, you win the toss and bat nine times out of 10 or something, or you think about it one other time. But yeah, I think they both want to lose the toss.
Yeah, especially given the day, and you're just like, well, I have no choice. So I think Pat Cummins is a bit like that. So look. But what we've seen in the 3 test matches is whoever's on top of the day one ends up winning the test match or controls the test match. So I think whatever happens on day one, given the evidence of let's hope it's not like that. Let's hope we have a test match which sort of, has a bit of swings, its momentum to day one and day two. We haven't really had that, to be honest. I mean, it's been good cricket, but it hasn't been great cricket. I think one team's probably come out on top after 90 overs of play. Again, whichever team bats first is going to win the test match. Similarly, it's simple as that. You're right. I just said, the Kohli and the punt. I just think Rishabh's been a bit quiet, and even Kohli for that matter, and even Shubman Gill. I just feel India's got something left in the tank, and it might just come if Australia just don't get it right. So, look, I think it's going to be a thrilling test match. I think it's going to dictate, but I'm starting to think in the Menners direction. I think India could pull this one off. Menners.
Yeah, well, there we go. We're in agreement finally. Just a couple of things before we wrap this up. Just on the McSweeney axing, I've been surprised, even a week later almost, that the backlash to that dropping has been quite loud. And I think when you sort of look at the general public, they sort of look at the cricket team, and it's that classic pub test. So they just look at the outside, young bloke picked, given a few test matches, and then just dropped when literally there are 3 other players in that top order performing as badly as him. So they just look at that and think that's no good. But I agree with that line of thinking that it just looks bad. And they've got themselves into a bit of a pickle because they've been backing these senior players for so long, and they seem to be afraid to drop anybody. But you could have easily said to McSweeney, you're going to bat at 3, we're going to give Marnus a bit of a spell, or we're going to put you in the middle order and Mitch Marsh is going to have a bit of a spell. But they went the other way. And I think this is a cautionary tale to the selectors that they've got to be really careful about this transition. They need to start making the big decisions, because Paul McSweeney has been caught up in this roller coaster. Although it's good for him to have this experience, he was shattered about being dropped, and he's shown good character. He's gone back to the Big Bash and made runs. But I think this needs to be a cautionary tale for Bailey and the selectors, that they need to start making the transition and make those tough decisions before, the public really does lose faith in them.
No, absolutely. And I think the other option they could have gone is Constance, and then McSweeney goes to number 5. But again, we know Steve Smith and Marnus, whenever they've batted together, their record isn't great. And I've heard international bowlers almost talk, saying, when those two, we know it's a big wicket, but those two have never taken the game away from you in a session. They don't fear that. It's going to be a long game when those two are at the crease. While Travis said, within a 10 overs, and we've seen that in Test match 2 and 3, he can take it away. And I think if McSweeney went for 5, that would be an issue. So he had no option but to go out. So, I think this Test match will dictate if the selectors get it their way, or they almost have to press the eject button and start getting these, that transition started. Because what's the point at 2-1 down? You're probably losing. 2-all is not really a win, so you might start getting somebody in and start making those few changes. 100% agree with you.
I actually think as well, Marnus could be a test opener. I've been thinking about this for a while, but I think when they make changes, if they have some middle order players they want to get into the team, I really think Marnus could open. I think he could go. He said before the series he doesn't want to. I'd just be saying, you're our opener, because he bats like an opener. He's, bats at 3, so faces new ball a lot. And I think that might be a good spot for him. Get him out there early. You can put a McSweeney in at 3, bring in another player to the middle order. But anyway, just want to talk about that. Last thing as well, just a bit of news about the Ashes. Ben Stokes has been ruled out of cricket for the next few months. So quite a serious hamstring tear. Although we're in sort of late December, it means he's not going to quite get the preparation he was hoping for the Ashes. It's becoming more likely that he won't be the all-rounder England want here next summer, because they were hoping he'd go back to being that match-winning all-rounder, but it doesn't seem like his body can hold up to it anymore. He put out this tweet overnight, Ben Stokes, and excuse my French, but this is the English captain talking. Ben Stokes, something else to overcome. Go on then. I've got so much more left in this tank and so much more blood, sweat and tears to go through for my team in this shirt. There's a reason I have a phoenix permanently inked on my body. See you on the field to fuck some shit up. That was the language of the English captain. So good on him. He's still got that fighting spirit.
You're thinking about the Ashes. There's still 5 Test matches England play against India at England's home summer. Who knows? Jasprit Bumrah might finish a few careers there as well before they come to Australia.
Well, we'll see. Gav, thanks for joining me for this Boxing Day Test preview. We'll catch up during the match. I think it's going to be a thrilling game. I cannot wait for it. I cannot wait till first ball is bowled in front of almost 100,000 people at the G. The Border Gavaskar Trophy is on the line. The Australian team's future is on the line. Couldn't be bigger stakes. So thanks for joining me. You have a great holiday, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Menez, and Merry Christmas to everyone out there.